How's everybody doing this morning? Awesome. Hey, great to see everybody. My name is Dan. I'm the teaching pastor here. If you're a guest, welcome. Glad you chose to be here. Hope you have an awesome morning. It's definitely got a lot packed in today, and man, it's a great Sunday to be here. We started a series a few weeks ago called Foolish Games. We're talking about the book of Proverbs. Written by Solomon, the wisest man to have ever lived. He had God-given wisdom, and we get these nuggets of wisdom all throughout the book of Proverbs. We started and we took a look at what wisdom was, and we took a look about the importance and the power of words the first week. Last week we talked about it is important about who you associate with because those that surround you shape you. Ultimately, the peer group, the advice that you get, it helps shape you. And actually, today is the perfect marriage of the last 2 weeks because we're going to combine the power of words and we're going to combine the association part, and we're going to get into a word called counsel. Who is your counsel today? Now, it's really important to a lot of organizations that you have feedback. You even see on the bottom of our response envelopes that we have a section there for comments, feedback, etc. And some of you use that from time to time, and you give comments about something you've been thinking about, and it comes to us as a staff. And it's important to us, except for the ones that are anti-Philadelphia Eagles things in there, that you do that to just really get me riled up. That's okay. I'm forgiving you. Now, it's important for us to get feedback. And businesses, this is why your company probably has their suggestion box. I mean, what could possibly go wrong with the suggestion box at a job? That's where some of the best snark and jokes come in. And it's important to most companies. This is why you see and you get those annoying survey calls and emails after you talk to somebody from a company. You're getting this follow-up that they want to know how they performed and how they did. It's important so much so that there's websites fully devoted to it, such as Yelp, such as TripAdvisor, which I do TripAdvisor a lot. I want to see how this hotel rated with real users. I don't want to hear from the staff, because the staff are going to say how wonderful it is, and you need to stay here. I want to hear from people. Now, I'll be honest, most of the time, the people that are the most passionate about giving reviews are the ones that really had a bad stay. They're the ones that are going to get on there and let everybody know, and they'll put all their pictures up and so on. Feedback is important. Feedback is incredibly important, and this is what has drawn me to one of my new favorite hobbies when I'm really bored, and this shows what my life is like, and that is Amazon reviews. You may not know this, but some of the best humor in the world is Amazon reviews. I have a couple examples here of some of the Amazon reviews from the past few years. The banana slicer. What can I say about the 57-1B banana slicer that hasn't already been said about the wheel, penicillin, or the iPhone? Gone are the days of biting off slice-sized chunks of banana and spitting them onto a serving tray. Next on my wish list, a kitchen tool for dividing frozen water into cube-sized chunks. Here's another one. Let's see the next one. You can go ahead with the, there we go. Okay, the officially licensed Star Wars Luke Skywalker ceremonial jacket with medal of Yavin. Where could this go wrong? Whenever I display my encyclopedic knowledge of Star Wars to my friends, they respond with, want a medal? Well, you know what? Since I bought this item, I already have one. This one had too many good ones with it. Okay, let's go to the next one. White face paint. My mind class went ape crazy over this stuff. Comments range from to get it? Okay, yeah. You get the idea. I think that was my last one. Amazon reviews. There are some hilarious ones up there that people just get in and they have to put their 2 cents in. And, of course, I'm sure Amazon or the people that make the product aren't real crazy about it. But we go to Amazon reviews. We go to all these different websites to get input from people who have experienced whatever it is, the product, the hotel, the place that you're going and thinking about doing like a birthday party at. We want experienced voices. And we want them to speak in because we want a great experience and we want to have a wonderful experience and we want to improve our lives. What's amazing about this and what takes a tremendous test of character is when you see people that you would look at and say they have no reason that they need to get input from people or feedback because they're doing a great job. When people like that or when companies like that still do it. It was 1938. an author had just written a book called The Hobbit, which was very successful. J.R.R. Tolkien had several friends that he would hang around at the White Hart pub, and they would talk through story ideas, and he had just started to write his next book, The Fellowship of the Ring. Now, this is a man who has had a success with the book, The Hobbit. But rather than just turn it over to the publisher, there's a recorded letter that he wrote to the publisher saying, hey, it's late, and here's why. See, he went to his group of friends at the White Hart. One of those was a man named C.S. Lewis, who wrote the Narnia series. He goes to C.S. Lewis, and he gives him the transcript of his Pride and His Joy, The Fellowship of the Ring, to which C.S. Lewis took it, read it, said, hey, love the story, but let me tell you something. Number one, your main character that you've called Bingo, you might want to change his name. That just sounds really dumb. And there was a sub-character named Frodo, to which he changed the name to. On top of that, he said, you've got all this, like, the hobbits talking to each other, and I got bored with it. You need to cut this out. Well, J.R.R., if you know anything about him, he studied languages. He was a brilliant linguist and studier of languages. He was offended by that C.S. Lewis would say you should cut all this dialogue out because he worked hard on this. And yet, J.R.R. went in, and he did it like C.S. Lewis said, not as his gut said, and he cut it down and whittled it down. And now you have the finished work of The Fellowship of the Ring. It is known as one of, just literary great book there. That took a lot of character of J.R.R. Tolkien, who had proven himself to ask for counsel, and then to go against even his own gut because he trusted C.S. Lewis with this. We need to improve our lives. Everyone here, we have things that we need to improve. We know it. There's areas that we need to improve. And many times, in order to have that improvement, we're going to have other people speak into our lives. And it may hurt. And it may make us angry. But if we want to improve things, we have to listen. My big idea this morning is simply this, that open ears opens improvements. When we open our ears, it opens us up to improvement. We can improve our life. We need to improve areas of it. What are some of the reasons that we don't want to receive insight? There's a couple reasons why we don't want people speaking into our lives, even if they have our best interest in mind. Number one is easy, pride. I don't know too many people that are like, I have failures in my life, and I just want everybody to know that. No, we like to think that we can improve ourselves. We don't need anybody pointing it out because we know about it, or we don't know about it. We think we've got it all together. What keeps us from receiving counsel in our life as well is a lack of trust in the person giving it. We don't trust them. We think they have an ulterior motive. We'll talk about what some of those ulterior motives might be in a second. So we don't trust the person giving us the insight. 3, we take it personally. That's what keeps us from counsel. We take it personally that when they say, hey, there's this thing that you're doing, there's this area of your life that you might want to consider changing a few things up or start to do something different, we don't see them talking about that area of improvement. It's a personal attack on who we are. We've characterized ourselves so much with whatever it is that it's an attack on who I am. You don't like me. No, I wasn't talking about you. I like you. It's this area. No, you're talking about me. Another reason that we don't like insight is, frankly, we just say, you know what, we can agree to disagree. This is how I think should be done, or how things should be done. You think that's how things should be done. Whatever. That's your opinion. And so improvement takes a lot of swallowing of pride, a lot of trust in a person, a lot of disassociating what it is they're talking about rather than taking it personally. Now, whether that's you or whether you're on the other side of the coin, giving feedback into a person's life, giving counsel into a person's life, all of us have played both roles. There's been times where we've given wisdom, whether it was to our children, whether it was to a friend, whether it was to a coworker. We've all given counsel to somebody. And there's 3 real motivations for why a person would give a person counsel or advice. Number 1 is they genuinely care about the success of the other person. You want the person to succeed. You care about them. They're a good friend. They're a good coworker. You enjoy them, so you will speak into their life to help them get better. But let me tell you about two negative reasons that sometimes. We can sometimes use counsel as a way of finally saying exactly what we want to say to attack the person. We do it in anger. And so we point out their shortcomings. And we don't have any intention of them getting better. We just want to point out their shortcomings. And so we attack. We don't use counsel for what it was meant for. It's payback to us. Or the other negative thing is sometimes we use counsel and giving a person counsel as a way to see ourselves as the wisest person in the room. Yes, people come to me for counsel because I have it all together. And obviously, me here, I know everything. And we can sometimes use it not to help the person, but to help ourselves in our own image and inflate ourselves to being something more than frankly we really are. And if that's you, get ready, because a lot of times people with that big of a balloon, it gets deflated really quickly. Something will come along to humble that. So if we open our ears, it opens us up to improving our lives in different areas of our life, including, and most importantly, our spiritual walk, our walk with Christ. If you want to grow to be more like Christ, you are going to have to open yourself up and listen to people's feedback into your life. And some of that may make you incredibly uncomfortable. Some of it, you may be offended. You might take personal. But if you trust the person, and if they are speaking wisdom, you see what they're talking about lived out in their life into your life, that's a good thing. We just have to learn to open our arms to it. The reason that we need feedback so much is because of one thing: blind spots. We all have blind spots in our life. Every single one of us has blind spots. And if you don't believe me, how many of you can see the very back of your head this very minute? Did you catch that? How many of you can see the back of your head right now? If you can, that's incredible. I want to know how you do that. Out-of-body experience. You just hopped out and looked back there. We can't see the back of our heads, but you know who can? Everyone around you. I don't like the fact that people can see the back of my head because the hair is bailing from the ship. Thank you, heredity. Anyway, people can see that. Here's another example. How many of you know that you might be doing something right now that's annoying people around you? Most of us don't know that we're doing something that annoys other people. It may just be the way that we're pulling out our phone. It might just be the way we're sitting there. Sometimes we do things and we don't realize that it's bothering people around us. Now everyone's paranoid. You're doing things that bothers people because everybody has strange quirks. We don't like the way people crunch their food. We don't like the way their nose whistles. We don't like the way they breathe. I mean, we have all these things, but you don't know that. You're just living your life. It's a blind spot. Now, I'm not saying you have to necessarily change that, but I am saying you're not aware of it. And so because we have blind spots, in our lives we have blind spots, we need other people who have a different perspective to speak into it. Unfortunately, when we talk about foolish games, we talk about the fact that the fool doesn't care. In fact, our foolish game number 3 is this, that fools play tag with wise advice. Fools play tag with wise advice. Now, let me explain this, because I had to make sure I was going to be clear with this. Tag, oftentimes we think about you're the person doing the tagging. No, the fool, the fool is everybody else that's playing the game. They're doing whatever they can to stay away. They don't want to be tagged by the wise person. They are running, they're going out of bounds, they're doing whatever they can to stay away from a person who has wisdom. They don't want anything to do with it. They're enjoying their life. Why should I be bothered and inconvenienced with your insight into my life? Do you know what it's like to be me? And so a fool plays tag, or maybe, a better way of saying this is plays cooties. Or if you read or saw the movie Diary of a Wimpy Kid, the cheese touch. I mean, you're staying away from the person that has wisdom. You don't want them near you or in your life. And so a fool will run from it. We have a couple verses we're going to look at out of Proverbs with this. And some of these I'm going to move through quickly. I encourage you, pull up the Hope Church app and you can look at them all day and take track of them. But the first one we have is Proverbs 12:15, and it says this: "The way of fools seems right to them, but the wise listen to advice. way a fool seems right to them, they trust their gut. They follow their heart. Now, I'm not saying following your heart's always a bad thing, but sometimes I've seen a person following their heart lead them off a cliff. The fool just trusts their own gut, their own knowledge, their own efforts, their own initiative, everything that they know, and doesn't listen to surrounding people. Whereas it says a wise person, no, they listen to advice. They listen to wisdom. They listen to people who have life experience or spiritual experiences or things that you're going through. They've been there. They can speak to you and comfort you or help you or redirect you, whatever it is. That's what makes a wise person. But another verse says this in Proverbs 11:14, where there is no guidance, where there is no wisdom, if you will, the people fall. But an abundance of counselors, there is victory. Some versions translate this safety. There's safety and a lot of counselors in your life. Surround yourself with them. Not just one, not just two. Get a bunch of them. Even in my own life, there's been times that I've had an abundance of counselors in my life. I've gone to many people about something I'm trying to figure out or something I need help on. And I've gotten a lot of different perspectives. And from that, I've been able to glean the wisdom and truth when I hear things repeated over a multitude of them. I can take out what's maybe a little bit of their opinion and perspective, but when I start to hear the same thing from multiple people, it gives me wisdom. Otherwise, I'm like a person who seeks no guidance. I fall. So out of these two verses, there's a couple things we can get out of this. Number one, to be wise means to get insight because you don't know it all. That's humbling. You don't know it all. None of us do. And until we begin to embrace that, we're going to just keep making the same mistakes over and over and over again. But if we want to be foolish, only listen to your gut. You know how to figure this out. You can pick yourself up. You're self-reliant. I'm independent. I don't need anyone to live my life. And inevitably, you end up walking off the cliff of destruction. But there's a few more verses. There's a few more verses with this that I want to go through. First, I'm going to take a look at Proverbs 17:10, and it says this: a rebuke impresses a discerning person more than 100 lashes of a fool. A rebuke impresses them. This word impresses here doesn't mean that they're like, oh, wow, that's impressive. This word impressive means it penetrates. It's literally the word for an arrow being shot at a person, and that arrow goes into them. That's what wisdom does to a person who is discerning, that it goes into them. A rebuke, when a person corrects you and says, hey, I've seen this. You got to stop doing that. You need to stop saying that. You need to redirect yourself. A discerning person lets it into their life. Whereas the fool, it's only external. It says here 100 lashes of a fool. They get beat 100 times, and yet it never penetrates them. They're callous. They have a hardness built up to any kind of rebuke. They just blow it off. The second verse talks about this in Proverbs 29:1. It says, whoever remains stiff-necked after many rebukes will suddenly be destroyed without remedy. Stiff-necked. What on earth are they talking about? I have a stiff neck often, but that's because of chiropractic issues. Anyway, stiff-necked here is this picture of an ox being put, or having a yoke put on it, and the ox does not want that yoke on it because it wants to control its own life, so it's rebelling against the yoke that's being put upon it. And it's this picture of rebellion that a fool stiffens their neck. They continue to resist, continue to fight against things that are wise or after rebukes that are meant for good for them. And yet they still fight it. But it says that that person will suddenly be destroyed and without remedy, without healing, without any hope for cure. We know too many stories like this where a person had people waving the warning flags around them and they just continued to make the bad choice, and then we see the destruction afterwards. The two things we could take out of this about being wise and being foolish. To be wise means to consider insight immediately. Consider insight and advice and counsel immediately. If it is a person you trust, if it's a person you see living it, take what they say, trust them, take it into your heart that they want what's best for you because you have blind spots. And consider it immediately. Whereas to be a fool means to blow off counsel repeatedly. Blow it off. They don't know what I'm going through. They don't know how in control of my life that I am. I'm totally in control of this. I got it. Thank you for your suggestions, but I'm okay. And so a fool will blow it off and blow it off repeatedly. But one more set of verses that I want us to look at that talk about being wise and being foolish. It says this in Proverbs 15:31 and 32. Whoever heeds, whoever listens to, whoever abides by, whoever does a life-giving correction, not life-taking correction, will be at home among the wise. Those who disregard discipline despise themselves, but the one who heeds correction gains understanding. That word there, disregard, is used sometimes as a wild animal, to describe a wild animal that's just wild and running free. It doesn't want to be contained or controlled and will fight against it. And that's literally, once again, we talk about playing tag. That is the foolish person when it comes to counsel. They want to get away from it. They will fight, claw, paw, and get away from it as much as they can. They won't listen to it. And they certainly won't put it into action in their life. So how do we be wise and be foolish with this? To be wise means to love yourself by changing yourself. To love yourself by changing yourself. If you truly want to get better, you're going to have to be open to change. And guess what? Change, you may think you're at a certain point where you don't have to keep changing. And that's just about the time that things will come along in your life that are going to make you face the need to change. We are in continual need of improvement. And the wise person knows and shows love for themselves because they realize they're limited. They realize they don't know it all. They realize they have blind spots. And because they love themselves and they want to put forward and give God the best version of themselves, they do it by change. Whereas the fool, they show that they hate themselves by being unteachable, by being stubborn, by digging in, by knowing it all. They literally show that they hate themselves because they don't want to improve. They're fine. Why would I change this about my life? And so, we see several principles about wise and foolish counsel here. The game changer of it all is simply this, that if we want to be wise, the game changer is that the wise crave insight and correct it. Correct themselves. They correct whatever the thing is. The wise crave insight and correct. I think of, I was on this one ride. I cannot remember the name of the park I was at, amusement park. But they had these old antique cars that you could drive, and they had these things that corrected your driving. And as a teenager, you're trying to pull on the steering wheel as hard as you can to see if you can get it to go off the side of the road. But it kept correcting. It kept correcting you, so you could not go off the road. And that's the thing with wisdom. If we want to be wise, not only do we need to crave, desire, look for, ask for, be open to insight, but we also need to be open to correcting what is broken and what is off and what is wrong. And being humble enough to accept it because we hear from other people. Not easy. See, we're self-reliant as Americans, right? That's the American spirit. We've done it. Man, look at us. We don't need anyone else. We're ourself. Look at our history. We've come through it, and we don't need anybody else. And that self-reliance, even some, even in the I know New England, I've seen just this, we can do it by ourselves, ofness, whatever you want to call that, that self-reliance. Sometimes that's a bad thing. Because when we become self-reliant, we shut down outside help. And when we shut down outside help, we shut down the ability to improve and change our life for the better. Counsel is not a sign of weakness. Getting counsel for people is not a sign of weakness. In fact, it's a sign of strength and humility. Don't be afraid to ask for insight. It doesn't make you a lesser person. It doesn't make you weak. It makes you humble and it makes you strong and it makes you inevitably better if you make the changes needed. Now, the flip side of this is, how do I give counsel? You may have someone you can think of right now that you're like, I really want to speak into this person's life, and I'm trying to figure out how to do it. This is a tricky one. I'm not going to lie. Giving counsel to people, number one, I would definitely recommend that you don't give it all the time without them wanting it. It's kind of like forcing medical treatment upon somebody who doesn't want it. It's the same thing with counsel. If a person comes to you, how do I speak into their life and give them wisdom, things that I see, things that I want to help them get better at? I have a couple steps with this. With giving counsel, first off, give it in humility. Give it in humility. Just like it takes humility to accept it, it takes humility to give it. When you have two humble people coming together, one to listen and one to speak, realizing their own brokenness, realizing that they too have blind spots, realizing that they have weaknesses. That's a beautiful thing. When two humble people could speak into each other's lives, when we know that the person giving it to us is not standing there like they're perfect, but because they care about you. The second thing, if you're giving counsel, is to speak truth in love. Speak truth in love. Do it with love. Don't come through with a fist into their mouth. Oh, you want to know? Here, I got some insight for you. Bam! Give it in love. If you genuinely want the person to improve, if you love them, make sure it is bathed and saturated in that and how you present it. I'm not saying beat around the bush and don't get to the point, but do it in care. Third, ground it in Bible and your experiences. Maybe point out some Proverbs if you've been reading through it like I encouraged you to. Point out some Proverbs that might give wisdom into this, or some scripture that you recall. Ground it in that, because that's our standard of truth. It's from God. But also your experiences are powerful. What you have been through. If you've taken our class for Move here, which if not, I recommend you do it. We'll have it in about 4 months. But we talk about shape, and one of the most powerful things you have for ministry is your experiences. Because that's your story. You've been through this. And because I've been through this, I can speak to that because I see you're going through the same thing, or you're headed the same direction as I. So out of my experiences, let me share with you. So share out of your experiences. But lastly, reassure the person their value to Christ. Sometimes when we speak into a person's life, as I said, they may take it personally. And we have to be careful that the person knows number one, we're doing this out of love. We're pointing out a blind spot that they may have, hoping that they'll be open and receive it with open hands. Just because I have to point this out in your life as a shortcoming, or maybe I have to tell you, you know what, you're really not good at this. That you understand, as hard as it is, that I love you, I want the best for you. And that person is valuable to Christ. Just because you may not be the greatest singer, dancer, whatever up front, doesn't mean you're any less of a person. Because you may not be a great teacher, doesn't make you any lesser of a person. You are still valuable to Christ. It's just this area, maybe it's not as strong as you think it is. Maybe there's ways that you can improve. So this is how we give counsel, and do it in a way that I believe honors Christ. So to close, I have a few questions for you. How do you handle counsel and constructive criticism in your life? Are you resistant to it? Do you blow it off? Does it crush you when somebody says something difficult? Do you trust the person that is giving it to you if you pick the right counsel around you, like we talked last week? Do you trust that they want the best for your life? Secondly, what blind spots are you overlooking in your life? If you're married, I bet your spouse might know a few of them. I'm not necessarily saying to ask, but maybe you need to. What are your blind spots? The areas of shortcoming, areas that you need to work on and get better at. And who might have a better view of it and has wisdom? Third, do you have a group of counsel set up for your life? Do you have your own, round table, if you will, that when you need wisdom, you know you can go to these people and lay it before them, and they love you, and they're going to give you counsel and wisdom and direct and point, maybe have to poke into some areas that's going to be a little difficult for you, but they're going to do it because they want you to improve. Who is that circle of counsel in your life? Who is wise? 4, have they or do they ever correct you? Let me tell you something. If you have a circle of counsel, of friends, of peers that you look to as wisdom, and they don't ever try to rebuke you, or they don't really speak about the obvious elephant in the room, you might want to find other counsel. You need people that are going to speak the truth even if it hurts, because they love you and they want you to get better. And lastly, how are you giving counsel or constructive criticism to other people? Are you doing it with a proud spirit in yourself, looking for personal gain? Are you doing it as a get back at them, a payback time? Or are you doing it out of genuine love for the person, and you see yourself as key to them improving their life and to be better? So my challenge this week is this: to identify the areas you need insight and ask for it. Identify the areas that you need insight. If you go through these questions of viewing blind spots, maybe asking people some areas that you see that you could improve. Whatever this is about, maybe it's at your workplace, how you could be better there. Maybe it's just on how can I be a better spouse to you? How can I be a better dad to our kids? How can I be a better community member? How can I be better even here in the congregation at the church here? How can I be better at that? How can I love Christ more? How can I be more like him? Once you have identified the areas of weakness, the blind spots, ask for help from people that are a model of what you want to be like, as we talked about last week. And then receive it and be willing to change in humility so that we all get stronger as we come together. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for voices of wisdom in our life. We thank you for those that care for us. We thank you for the ability to build up the body, to make each other strong as you desire the body to be strong. Jesus, we ask that you would give us wisdom and courage in speaking into people's lives. Lord, that if there's areas and blind spots that we need pointed out, Lord, that you would give us a humble heart in accepting that, and a humble heart to teachability. And Lord, may we realize that we're all valuable in your eyes. Lord, may this church grow stronger as we counsel and encourage one another. And Lord, may we be able to speak even into the lives of those in our workplace who don't even know you, and give them wisdom that they know comes from something greater than the person talking to them, that wisdom comes from God. Even if they don't believe in him, they have to give credit to something about what is said to them. Help us to be wise counsel, and we ask this in your name. Amen.